So as most of you know by now, the Samsung Galaxy S21 actually just came out yesterday or was announced yesterday. I went ahead and pre-ordered it, but let's go ahead and talk about a phone that came out 2 years ago, the Samsung Galaxy S10. Instead of talking about that phone, we'll talk about a super old one or an older one. You know what's very interesting about this device? As soon as this phone came out, I had another one of those epiphanies where I was like, if you pick up this phone, you will be set for so many years to come. And that has never been more true than now, because I look at the Samsung Galaxy S21 and I look at this phone and I still feel like the Samsung Galaxy S10 is a flagship device. Not much has changed like crazy between this phone and the S21. 2 years have gone by and this phone is still a killer device in so many different areas, and it's worth more now than the video I did last year, which is so crazy. So the Samsung Galaxy S10, if you want to pick it up, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now the front of the S10, first of all, this is still one of the most beautiful aspects about this phone. That 6.1 inch panel on it, 1440p hole punch display. You have a very tiny bezel on the top and bottom, but it's still such a beautiful panel. Whenever I look at this phone and whenever I made videos about it or anything, it just looks so good on camera. It's just not even funny. I think this phone looks better than the S20 in a lot of ways too. Even though the S20 is still, my favorite phone, the Galaxy S10 is such a good looking device, both front and back. You know what I mean? And the panel of this with the fingerprint sensor in the display still holds up completely, and for sure it still feels like a flagship phone, hands down. On the bottom you do have that USB Type-C port with that headphone jack, which is a very interesting thing because, as you guys know, none of us have headphone jacks anymore for the most part, but this device has it, which is beautiful. You have, the volume buttons, power buttons, all that stuff, but you have that micro SD card slot, which is beautiful. You look at the Samsung Galaxy S21 series, all those phones there, they removed the headphone. They removed the micro SD card slot, which is so sad. That was one of the best things about a Galaxy phone. And I still remember the Galaxy S6 when they removed that micro SD card slot. That was insane. Then they eventually added it back, and now they have fully removed it from their S series device. Very sad, but again, there's nothing we can do about it, but it's very insane that the S21 removed it, but the S10 has it, thankfully. Now on the back of the S10, we do have that standard glass back, which I still think looks very good. I love the, frosted back glass or whatever. I love that a lot more than this one, but I still think, having glass on the back is perfectly fine. We now have a plastic back on the Galaxy S21. Very strange, and I'm not trying to make this into a comparison, but I love comparing what we had then to now, and seeing that back then is even better than what we have now, which is so crazy. Now we do have IP certification on this phone, reverse wireless charging, all that good stuff, which is great. And this phone still feels like such a flagship phone when you hold it in your hands. So for sure, when it comes down to it, the way it feels, the way it performs still gets a thumbs up for me in my books. Now in terms of the camera, we're going to hit on the camera because this is very interesting. You have a triple camera setup, so a 12 megapixel wide angle lens, 12 megapixel telephoto lens, then a 16 megapixel ultra wide sensor. Now this camera, in my opinion, still holds up completely. Okay, I've done so many comparisons between this specific camera and a lot of the other phones that have came out, the iPhone 11s, the iPhone 12s, the Galaxy S20s, all these other phones you can name that were flagships I compared it to, and this camera still holds up so well. It has the 3 camera setups that are the most important. The wide angle lens, which is that standard lens, the telephoto lens, which allows you to zoom in a lot, and the ultra wide sensor, which allows you to zoom out a lot. So you have quite a bit of range. There's no camera sensors on here that are boring or that are a miscellaneous. These are solid camera setups for sure. And you still have 4K at 60. You have a lot of features built into this camera set that One UI 2.5 brought. So that is another huge advantage of this device. So there's really not a bad way to look at this phone in terms of the camera. Even the front with that 10 megapixel sensor, we can do 4K at 60 as well. So this is another huge advantage for this type of phone that we have. Is it the best camera in the world right now? Absolutely not. I think the S21 probably has a better camera. You can do 8K on it and everything, but this camera is still perfectly fine. And for the year that it came out, 2019, for it being a 2-year-old phone, and for the price that you can pick it up, this is seriously one of the best cameras in terms of a budget type phone that you can pick up for sure. So in terms of the camera setup, that pretty much covers it up. Software wise, this is another huge advantage of this phone, believe it or not. When it first came out, it started off with Android 9. It did get Android 10. Well, during its Android 10 tenure, whatever you want to call it, when it had Android 10, we did get the announcement that it would be getting an extra year of support. That in and of itself is another huge thing that propelled it to basically lasting an extra year. So it was already almost like a brand new phone in a way. So with that being said, this phone, getting One UI 3, it's going to be getting One UI 4. It's probably going to end off on One UI 4 if I'm being honest, but that's still a really decent version of software for an Android device compared to iOS. Obviously, it's not comparable, but this one is still going to be lasting you for at least like a couple more years than a year of security updates. So you're still going to be lasting for quite a bit of time on this type of device too. So for sure, when it comes down to it, I'll say software-wise, it's still okay for the most part. Moving on to the performance side of things, the Samsung Galaxy S10 had that Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 chipset, octa-core CPU, Adreno 640 GPU, and 8 gigs of RAM on each of the model of this device. You had a 128 gig model, and then a half a terabyte model, which I didn't even know about, and the micro SD card slot, which is crazy. Now, when you look at the RAM on this phone, you look at the RAM on the S21, exactly the same amount of RAM. There's no difference, it's the same amount of RAM. You are getting the newer chipset though, so keep that in mind. The S21 should theoretically be faster. But here's the thing, the Samsung Galaxy S10 is still more than enough fast, it's still more than enough speed for me. I'm not somebody who uses a phone like crazy. Obviously I use my phone like crazy, but I'm not somebody who plays a bunch of games on my phone or anything like that. But I like having the opportunity to do so. I like having the back of my mind that, if I really wanted to do something on my phone, I could do it. It wouldn't like hang up or anything like that. The Samsung Galaxy S10 is still one of those devices. If you're somebody who needs a phone, for day-to-day tasks, you want to go on Snapchat, you want to text people back, take phone calls, go on Google calls, whatever the case you want to do, you can pretty much do all of that on the Samsung Galaxy S10. This is a killer device when it still comes down to the performance. Even though it doesn't have the latest and greatest chipsets and all that, it's still more than enough fast of a phone. The RAM is pretty much almost exactly the same as the S21 as well as the S21 Plus, so that's perfectly fine for me. It just may be a little bit slower. The software also doesn't help out if I'm being completely honest. The One UI 3 update, I haven't installed One UI 3, but I got One UI 2.5 on it. No software version on this phone has been perfect, just like any other device, but it is a little bit glitchy here and there, which is totally fine for the most part. It's expected. So when it comes down to it, you're going to be getting, and it's still an extremely fast phone. It's not going to be the smoothest phone. It's not even going to be a really smooth budget phone, but it's going to be perfectly fine for pretty much everyone's use case for it. So when it comes down to it, performance-wise, it gets a thumbs up for me. Whatever you're going to do with it in terms of even light tasks all the way to extreme gaming, it may heat up a little bit, but it's going to get you there. And I would say this is still a really good performing budget phone, or a really good, 2-year-old flagship phone for sure in terms of performance. So in terms of performance, that pretty much covers it up. Now, ending it off with the battery life, this device did have a 3400 mAh battery, which is still a pretty good battery size. You do have reverse wireless charging as well as wireless charging on this device too. So that's another huge aspect about it. Now, standby time was great. Using the phone, battery life was actually pretty good as well. I would say obviously the S10 Plus, the S20 also had, I think, better battery life than this device, but I think the battery life on this phone was pretty good, and even if you use it this day and age, I think you're going to have a perfectly fine experience with it for sure. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. And to kind of sum up the whole entire video and to answer the question, is the Samsung Galaxy S10 still worth it in 2021? Well, let me tell you this, and let me just tell you the pros, because it's very important that I tell you the pros first. The Samsung Galaxy S10 has such a beautiful design still. It's a timeless design. You can pick up this phone 7 years from now and it's still going to look beautiful. Just like how you can pick up a Galaxy S8 right now and still feel like you have a really, really good premium phone, even though it's 4 years old at this point. The Samsung Galaxy S10 is one of those devices. You have a beautiful display, 1440p fingerprint sensor in the display, hole punch display at that, very good panel for sure. You have the USB Type-C with Samsung DeX. That in and of itself is a whole nother feature set that you can get into, and that is a really awesome thing as well. Micro SD card slot support, glass on the back, reverse wireless charging, still an amazing camera setup for the front and the back, which is amazing. Software updates still supported on this phone. Performance is great on this phone for the most part. Battery life is pretty good. There's really not that much to complain about. Really, the main thing I can complain about this specific device is probably the specific software, OS that it's on. One UI is definitely now one of my favorite versions of Android ever. I've been vocal about it. If this thing had stock Android, or if it had the opportunity to put stock Android on it, that would make this phone like timeless in so many different ways, more than just the hardware. This phone, as it holds up right now, is a beautiful phone. It holds up completely. It's not a bad phone. It's not an ugly phone by any means, and it still has so much power within it. I just wish the software on it was stock. I wish it had a little bit less going on. You can always throw on a custom launcher and stuff, but it's still not quite the same, and I would have loved to see some sort of difference when it came down to it. But I think when it comes down to everything about this device, this phone still holds up completely, and there's just not that much to hate on it. It's still a perfect phone, and even when you look at the Galaxy S21, it's surprising how the Samsung Galaxy S10 automatically feels like that much better of a device compared to its newer successor in a way, which is so weird. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.